involves voting. It's going to be in the application's interest to work out how to manage user activity so that that they don't spend their $100 a month in the first hour having a host or somebody game the system.
Right, I got it. Right, makes sense. Cool. Yeah. How interesting.
So it's really so the technology is built to power a new internet, and one of the most important things is getting the architectural layers right. Both technology and the currency layers, but most importantly, it is to design with the social in mind. So I'd love to, on another time, explore all of the different gaming scenarios and also the different social outcomes, because we've really tried to have, within our design, think about how do people actually behave and what motivates and incentivizes people.
Sure.
And it's not enough to just say, the technology will prevent centralization, because no centralization happens socially as much as technically. So we need to be able to design social architectures as well into these kind of systems to be able to meet the needs that people have.
Amazing.
Yeah. How are you incentivizing then people to join the ecosystem? Or are you, I guess?
Yes, again, on the last AMA, second to last AMA, I think we said we're not paying people, and there's a really clear reason why you shouldn't be paying people to build on these protocols, because the businesses, they're not ready.
Right.
You really want bootstrap businesses that have great business models, meeting customer needs, or you want businesses with existing customer bases that have a real need for distributed systems to be moving over. And for us, what we're looking for are a few different things, but we're looking for people with amazing passion to want to build applications that really shape an industry or create new ways of thinking, being able to build new kind of patterns based on Holochain. That's one, but their motivations are all intrinsic, right?
Sure.
Because they've been looking for this tech for years. And if we can build the tech that they've been looking for, then they're going to find us. And really it comes down to, in the same approach to any different segment, we're really looking to find what's deeply motivating for people. How can we partner to be able to design and implement the best possible solutions?
Sure.
But initial users, just it doesn't make sense to us to fund an ecosystem that isn't based on really, really strong foundations.
How interesting. Cool. It's great to hear that, to be honest. I think a lot of people will appreciate hearing that, because I think we want more, down to earth, grounded projects that are focused on the reality, which is building a business. So I've got kind of two business questions for you that kind of come off of that. The first being, so you've got a foundational system that's there. How are you finding it in terms of getting apps to build, companies to build their apps on there? I mean, that's hard to find on your website and looking online in the internet. Are you able to give any examples of projects that are already up and running, or is it still kind of an early stage development?
So we're moving very close to our testnet, where we're going to have a closed alpha and then an open alpha. We do have one project, hum.earth, that have actually, before Holo even existed, served a WordPress equivalent with distributed hosting solution that you can access online right now. Anytime there's sort of 50 to 100 applications in various levels of development, and very active developer community as well that we're supporting. But really the key milestones are to have a successful testnet and then be opening up increasingly. And I think that's when we'll be looking to really scale the number of applications that are building.
And that's when it'll be really interesting to get you back on the show to tell us about what's really going on with these apps and what they're delivering and the value they're bringing to users, and even maybe bringing one of those apps on the show so we can tell people, if they want to check the app out, this is where they can go to check it out. So
absolutely. That would be fantastic.
Really, that's really interesting for me.
And for people listening, one thing to just think of when you're thinking about a Holochain application is application design is modular and really relies on microservices. So for example, we have a chat application that's running on Holochain at the moment. Now the same functionality can also be run for comments on a blog. So what we've got with Holochain is your ability to plug and play various microservices or small components means that you should be able to build out your application many, many times faster, that you can build like a lot of even centralized applications. That's a core part of our design and why we think that centralized users will eventually, or centralized application developers will eventually switch over to Holochain. So right. Yeah, definitely we'll come on and we'll bring, we profile a different project. We just started with the first project, Junto, last week or the week before, and then we're profiling a different project every 2 or 3 weeks across our community. Love to bring a project on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So the second question that I had, and then I think you looked like you wanted to ask something. So the second question I had was really more about the financial side of the business, which is not the 20 million that you raised, but actually what's the economic model for how the company will, monetize and operate and run. And the reason I ask that is because I think a lot of people that when they're listening and watching the show are usually asking, are these projects going to survive, or are they just going to run out of money? And how do they actually turn from, great idea and a dreamer perspective into reality? So what we're trying to do is give people, and hopefully everyone listening in will be happy to hear that we're asking this, because I know a lot of people have asked this, to us quietly, privately. So could you just give us a little bit of an indication in terms of what your monetization model looks like, some of the different things you're trying to do to generate revenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I think there's 2 parts to that question that I'll talk to. One is the treasury management side, and that's something, again, like we see a lot on Telegram. What's this project doing with treasury? Didn't need to worry about in 2017. It's a big deal in 2019.
Yeah.
So on the treasury side, we're working to a 5-year plan that we've put in place, and that is independent from some of the revenue opportunities that I'll talk to you about in a sec, right? Because it's good corporate practice to separate and have worst case on the cost side.
Absolutely.
And then start building out for best case as you think about the future opportunities.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of the business opportunities, it's important to understand a little bit the design of HoloFuel. HoloFuel is the micropayment currency that powers Holo, right? And HoloFuel has been designed to be backed by effectively the asset of distributed hosting. And it's a little bit different in that it's a mutual credit currency. Mutual credit means that unlike a lot of the fixed supply designs that we see today, mutual credit allows you to do variable supply. And so you're using supply to manage demand rather than price, which you use fixed supply economy.
Mm-hmm.
This is when it starts getting interesting, is when you commoditize a very, very profitable industry. So we can all think about the example of Airbnb and what Airbnb has done to housing industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's effectively taken, I don't know the figures, but enormous amount of revenue and profits and taken them away from hotel chains and individual hotels, distributed some to people, large amount, and distributed brought an enormous amount to Airbnb. With Holo, what we've looked at and said the computing, the hosting world is very similar. So Amazon's biggest cash cow being Amazon Web Services, incredibly fast growing market, ripe for exactly the same disruption that Airbnb has provided for housing. So what we've done is we've sort of said, okay, well, we've benchmarked what if Ethereum, who's supposed to be this kind of distributed computing, what if Ethereum tried to disrupt Amazon Web Services? What would the price of hosting be? And our benchmark was 10,000 times better than at the ICO, 10,000 times better than Ethereum could provide, because obviously at Ethereum's rate of distributed hosting, no one could ever run distributed hosting or buy it, but it seemed like a good benchmark. And so this sets our initial price. And so anyone who's pre-purchased hosting credits, which is what the ICO was, could buy hosting on the Holo network at that price.
Mm-hmm.
But as the efficiency of the network goes, and I think we've been quoted as saying it could increase, the efficiency could increase 100,000 to 1 million times because, the architecture I've described earlier is infinitely scalable. Then someone who bought a unit of hosting a year before now suddenly gets 100,000 times the hosting power for that unit than they initially purchased. Right? That's it. Mm-hmm. So equally, like we all know, there's enormous risk with any of these projects, and we may not be able to deliver on these promises, but interestingly, it's not a price-based promise. It's a promise to say you received a unit of hosting, and now this is what your unit of hosting, this is the hosting power it can now provide you. Wow. So the incentive mechanism for people who've been contributing early on, whether that's providing the hosting, whether that was participating in fundraising, is to pre-purchase hosting credits at a particular rate, and based on the benchmarks we set for at that time, the current performance of the network. So that might illustrate to you some of the incentive design and the currency design of HoloFuel.
Yeah, for sure. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about, as I know there's a lot of talk about potential partnerships and that kind of stuff, and could you talk about what kind of your goals are for 2019 and some new things that the listeners could potentially see that you actually can talk about?
So I think what people should expect are the increasing communications and clear communications from the project, and that is around development, that is around the way the organization is operating, and that is moving then into community and celebrating the amazing online and offline community that we're building in different countries around the world, whether that's developers, people wanting to be across the project, and then also to the ecosystem. In terms of announcements that people can expect, whether it's partnerships, etc., I think we have taken a slightly different tack to other projects, and partly that's just designed to, we really want to build something that has enormous utility for the world, and so we haven't spent too much energy on some of the exploratory kind of partnership relationships that sounds fantastic. So let's say Apple is building X on Holochain, because generally they're going to be the R&D teams exploring and experimenting with some new technology. And frankly, until we get to mainnet and have things tested and pulled apart, well, not really going to be ready for the kind of partnerships that I think the crypto world really, really gets excited about. So it's just going to be the same. Lots of talks with lots of people, building the fundamentals, and then, as the incentives align and people see this as a technology that really their business can change around, or people say, I want to build new businesses on this technology because it's going to make a radical difference, then we'll be ready.
Yeah, so on your homepage, in fact, there's two really interesting videos. One is from, another well-respected crypto project, Leica. Are you doing anything with them, or was this more of just like a technical proof of concept?
Yeah, the technical proof of concept, and then the other thing that we've often showed videos of people who are very aligned philosophically with the project as well.
Right.
It takes a bunch of, like we've talked about on this call, there's a few mental shifts that you need to make Holochain to make sense. So when people have made those mental shifts, they end up being big supporters of the project and often will publicly validate what we're doing.
Which is, I think, what you're alluding to with your friends at Mozilla, which was the other interview, very interesting one. And of course, we're not going to, beat around the bush about this, because there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of news about that. And of course, him being there just kind of fuels more rumors that there's something else going on. And I'm sure there's probably not much you can tell us, but is there anything that you can tell us about the relationship with Mozilla?
No, not really. Just exactly as we've said many times before. I think as it says on the website, that there's philosophical alignment, and this kind of architecture makes enormous sense for where distributed web to go.
So could we imagine a world, and we're just playing imagination now because I've got kids. So you've got kids, I've got kids, and Yuri will someday have kids. So